friends. I'm Karen, and this is the Family Food for Moms podcast. We're talking about inspiration for family cooking and dining. Today, we're going to talk about what we can learn from Downton Abbey times and from the show itself, just the things that are significant when it comes to food and dining and even cooking. We're excited about the Downton Abbey movie coming up on the 12th of September, so I thought it would be a good time to do this. There's so many things that inspire you when you look at the way they ate and what they ate, although it required having a full-time cook or two. So that part we can't really replicate, but there's lots of principles that are inspiring and that we can apply to our daily lives and our families. I did an episode on this before. I think it was number 2. But this is kind of some new ideas, some similar, some different, but it's all good stuff, and I'm starting afresh. So number 1 is that meals have a significant role in daily life. You see in Downton Abbey where they ring the dinner gong and everyone gets dressed smartly for dinner. The tables are set beautifully. Everybody spends a lot of time preparing for the meal. The wine is decanted. And so it was a ritual, an important ritual in their daily life. Everybody took time out from everything else. They paused and they prepared, they got dressed smartly, and they were ready for the meal. They were ready to uphold that rhythm of their days. And then, of course, they would connect with each other at the table. It was a time to slow down and really enjoy each other's company and enjoy the food that had been carefully planned. Mrs. Hughes making the menus and making sure the items or the ingredients were there, Mrs. Patmore, and then doing the cooking, and then just courses of interesting food that they had at the meal. Of course, they were tech-free. In those days, there was candle-lit ambiance, beautiful flower arrangements on the table. That's a lot of items. I'm going to talk about some of those again. But the whole idea of the meal being part of daily life, an important, significant part. We can apply that by making dinner time special and significant. So the children know that it's important. They know that they have to set aside that time, set aside any tech, maybe dress smartly, be wearing shoes, make sure their hair looks good and their faces are clean, hands are clean. And then the table can be set beautifully. So little mini traditions that your children becoming accustomed to makes dinner a good ritual to look forward to. And then sometimes you can do it in a way that is more special than others, but the important part is that you know that it's significant and it's that time to be together that's set aside. Then number 2, dining is an experience, not just a necessity. So it's not something to just rush through and quickly eat on the run or be standing in the kitchen or watching a show on TV, but be actually a time that's set aside. Dining is an experience. So, as I've said, multi-course meals at Downton Abbey, they would have many courses. We don't have to have that many, but it is really fun to break up your food into 3 courses. You can have something for an appetizer. The vegetables from your main course could be the appetizer. Then you have the meat and maybe a starch. And then you could do a cheese course with some nice baguette or bread like they do in France. And then you could do a dessert. So Downton Abbey tables were beautiful. They were set very perfectly and measured out by Carson with the crockery and cutlery in perfect positions. There were more than one glass, more than one piece of cutlery for each course, and beautiful folded cloth napkins, an elegant centerpiece, sometimes even printed menus. So any of those small touches really help make the experience. So there's the expectation of dinner being an experience, and then there's the attention to detail. So you can set your table beautifully, beautiful tablecloth. You can use some of the things I've mentioned. You can do underplates, anything that helps it to appear special and to be special. When I mentioned the rituals, another thing that's fun is a palate cleanser. Have a little bit of lemon sorbet in your freezer, and then just put a tiny bit in a little glass or a little bowl for each person in between your first and second courses. It just adds a special touch. And if we're not able to do this every night, just coming back to that meal time as a special, significant part of the day, a special ritual, something that everybody looks forward to, a time to connect and leave everything else behind and reset, and a time to enjoy food and enjoy each other's company. That really is so significant. So we need to make sure that we're doing that multiple times a week and coming back to that. If you have an evening out for sports or something that's on one evening and you can't do it, then return to it the next day, or have maybe 3 days a week set where you know you're going to do that. You can have one day a week maybe where you do something fun, like in my previous episode, ideas for family fun nights. So that's not formal. It's not necessarily at the table. It's just easy food and a different kind of fun, maybe even in front of a movie. But then this one would be at the table together as often as you can. Number 3, we've definitely talked about this one before, and that would be seasonal eating and cooking from scratch. So using seasonal local ingredients. In France, they get to go to the market every day and choose fresh things. So it's not quite as easy for us with a local supermarket, but still trying to buy produce that's in season. It's often what's cheapest and most delicious, most nutrient dense. It'll look ripe, it'll look inviting, and it'll add much more flavor to your meals. And then cooking things from scratch in Downton Abbey, having a cook, of course, and not having much available from the grocery store that was pre-made. Everything was made from scratch. And it's really hard to find time for this in our modern, crazy, hectic world. But there is something amazing, beautiful, healthy in slowing down when you're cooking, having that time before dinner to enjoy cooking. Now, I don't get to do this very often, but if you can find time at least once or twice a week to really slow down and enjoy cooking something a little more elegant, doesn't have to be complicated, but something that's kind of wholesome, like a good meat, a rich meat that's well prepared and done in the crock pot, or some elegant appetizers. Our book, Elegant Easy Appetizers, gives you a whole lot of ideas for what you can do. Stuff that doesn't even need to be cooked and is elegant and delicious and healthy. You can find that on familyfoodformoms.com. So trying to do meal planning a little bit for your week, knowing what meat you're going to use for each meal or a substitute if it's beans or something. And then it's much easier once you know that part to plan what's going to be around that. And I find it even easier if you do it in courses and you know your main course is going to be roast lamb. Then for appetizer, I'm going to choose something like cucumber with cream cheese and tomato appetizer, something that's really different and fresh from the lamb, like a light beginning. Then number 4, the afternoon tea. Again, this is much easier if you have a cook in your house, but I think the point of it is to slow down in the afternoon and pause, the lost art of pausing. So afternoon tea wasn't just about the food, but about connecting with each other in the middle of the afternoon and slowing down again. So you've done a whole lot of things and now it's time to pause and then you continue. So like a family tea time, you can do, if you're homeschoolers, or even if you're not, you can do a poetry tea time in the afternoon where you all choose a poem to read and you bake some scones or something small and easy and fun to have with your tea in the afternoon. And it brings the family together in a unique way. Even if dad's not able to be there, it's a fun way for mom and the kids to connect. And it's definitely a good way for mom to slow down and be reminded about that. So it's something I think we need to bring back once a week. Sometimes you can make it elegant. Your children can help you put out the fancy cups and saucers and fancy little tea plates. Doesn't have to be like that every time. Sometimes it can just be a plate of eats and a quick cup of tea in a mug. But it does also make it extra special to use the elegant teacups and teapots. Lots of fun too. And they definitely have beautiful crockery in Downton Abbey. Number 5, kitchen resourcefulness. In Downton Abbey's kitchen, nothing went to waste. Mrs. Patmore was a master at using leftovers creatively, and I'm sure there were often leftovers because they had to have enough for many people plus visitors. Sometimes there were multiple courses, so perhaps sometimes the downstairs people ate it afterwards, and other times it would be put into something else for the following day. So bones were used for broth. Scraps of various items could be put into something like a quiche. So she was very resourceful with leftovers. So it's not always easy to use leftovers in a way that's effective. A great way to use up vegetables is in a quiche. Great way to use up leftover chicken and gravy and potatoes is to make a chicken pot pie. Otherwise, you can create small meals for another day's lunch and then freeze them so that they stay fresh. Just defrost them on the day you're going to heat them for lunch. Have some small glass containers with lids to put that into. You can use a compost heap. And then just plan meals like soups as well are great for using up leftover vegetables or leftover meat scraps. Number 6, the next generation. So in Downton Abbey, Daisy was trained up starting young in the kitchen and learning from Mrs. Patmore through being mentored. And she was taught intentionally which skills she needed. So using whatever time we have in the kitchen to involve our kids, and maybe one at a time so it's not too overwhelming, but just to let them help you with small tasks. They can be given a task to complete, for example, wash the baked potatoes, put them on a baking tray with a bit of oil and salt and stick them in the oven. Or they can just do what you're doing with you, do some chopping, do some mixing, look at the recipes and learn how things generally work. Somehow exposure to things in the kitchen, even if you're not doing it, makes it so much easier to start cooking. My husband and many people who grew up without any idea about cooking or hardly spending any time in the kitchen, it's a lot more daunting. And it's not that they can't do it, it's just that it feels a lot harder for them. So I really believe having the children in the kitchen with you helps so much. And then getting them to do some baking for family treats. You can use them for those poetry tea times. You can use them for snacks. In our family, some don't eat wheat, so it's great that we can bake with spelt flour, have our own treats that are healthier. So getting your kids involved, and by the time they're teenagers, they should be able to make a meal or two on their own. Or during the teenage years, they can learn. Ours have learned how to make ground beef or bolognese. They've learned things like baking chicken in the oven, doing lots of side vegetables and potatoes, and then how to do soups and stews a little bit with some help. So their skills kind of gradually grow over time with simple things. And of course, there's times when it's too much and you're in a rush and it's easier to do it yourself. And that's completely fine. Give yourself grace, but just try to see who you can involve at each point of your cooking. And then lastly, number 7, celebrations and feasts. So using food to mark special occasions, to celebrate. At Downton Abbey, holidays, births, royal events were celebrated with elaborate meals, many courses, extra decor, more footmen, and just really fancy food and something that made it stand out, made it special. It was amazing seeing the movie where the Queen and King came for dinner. So special food marks a special moment. It helps to form memories. It helps to make that time a time of family connection. So celebration food, and it doesn't have to be fancy, but the small little touches really help, like we mentioned in point number 1. The way you decorate the table, the way you decorate the room, the candles you use, or the lights, twinkle lights, elegant music, dressing up smartly, making the room look special and making the food a little special by the way you plate it. We have some episodes on plating food like in a chef's menu and how to make it easy to do at home. But maybe printing a paper menu for people to follow, or having specific foods in a traditional way that you have on specific holidays. So just trying to celebrate food and celebrate life together, and adding some interesting events like first day of school dinner, first day of vacation, and then special rituals you can do at Easter time and Christmas time with your family. Things like the tea time, poetry tea time that I mentioned. You brainstorm a little bit with your kids and ask them which days they find special to celebrate, what kind of things they like to do on those dates, and then plan them in advance. You can choose some of the fun days. We have 2 episodes on the fun days, the national fun days like National Pancake Day, etc., that are to do with food that you can also listen to. That's episode 46 and 51. So choose your days together that you're going to celebrate maybe each month. We try to have a family meeting once a month on a Sunday evening, and then we plan out the calendar, we look at what's on, and then we plan some fun event type meals that we want to add and celebrate. So thank you for listening. I hope you get to see the Downton Abbey movie if you're into it and that you enjoy it. I can't wait. I'll see you next time.